This week, we're talking again about journal activities to learn a language. And specifically, we're talking about activities that work best at that B or intermediate level. And when you're at the B or intermediate level, you can start creating with languages. Usually, it's sort of at the sentence level. And again, all of these activities can be adapted. Beginners is words and phrases. Advanced is paragraphs up to extended paragraphs. But I think these work best at the intermediate level, but they can be just adapted. The task and the length of the language that you deal with just needs to be reduced if it's intermediate. So, the very first activity, you see this sort of blueprint here for a house. Some of my favorite activities are for learning, involve doodling. And I talk about there's lots of different ways to do it. But one thing that's great, or several things that are great about doodling to learn languages, is that it allows the learner to learn on their own, right? It's not dependent on interacting with another person, and it allows you to interact really deeply with vocabulary, and you'll learn it. So, a beginner would doodle things basically, right? Or themes of things. Um, but this is just another take on it that's just a little bit more advanced. So you see this house here, but it could really be anything that involves nouns. So in your journal, you would pick something, a theme, for example. And let's use the house example. So you draw a house, it could be blueprints, perhaps you have that talent, or it could simply be a house or different rooms in a house. And you draw and you label everything in it. It's a great way to learn vocabulary. Some other examples for this might be drawing people, right? So you are interacting with vocabulary to talk about body parts, to talk about health, to talk about um, people's appearance, right? That's all conducive to all that, to learning all that vocabulary. Perhaps you do this for a school, a store, a city, a train station, a car, anything you can imagine drawing. And of course, you can do this at the beginning level, and I do recommend that you do it. But the way to give it a good bump is after you've done it, you write about it in great detail. You use your visual to write about it in great detail. It's a really fun way to interact with vocabulary, and it works for anything. I also really like vocabulary themes. So, on one hand, I would say that realistically, we don't or acquire rather vocabulary by studying lists, right? We don't learn all the names for all the clothes, and then we master those, and then we learn another theme that we master, etc. However, it's a great way to review vocabulary, I would say, because you can do this again on your own and you can build your vocabulary. So, in your journal, you might have a vocabulary themes journal, and it's a place to collect the names for all the fruits, all the vegetables, perhaps. You've got a page for numbers, you've got a page for clothes, you've got a page for whatever, and fill in the blank. It's a great way to really personalize your learning, our reviewing vocabulary in themes. I think this works best at the intermediate level, and then filling in gaps. Um, as I said, we don't necessarily naturally acquire vocabulary like this. Body parts might be an example. We learn body parts in the context of talking about appearance or talking about health, but then to really build that vocabulary, you can, in your target language, you can do that on your own in an activity like this. Fluency writing. This is one of my very favorite activities. So in fluency writing, again, you can do this as a beginner. You are going to pick a theme, and you're going to time yourself and write about it. And I really like to pick, 10 minutes, 12 minutes, something like that, something that's not really long. And I force myself to write as much as I can about a topic. And in in the journal, as you're journaling, you're gonna catch your gaps. You're gonna figure out what you're missing, and then you can look it up. I like to do this activity also when I'm at the A level in a language using Google Docs because it has the built-in dictionaries. But the hand to brain thing works really well. Write it down, and then once your time is up, you go fill in your gaps and just keep building. I heard about somebody, I wish I could give him a shout out because I thought it was really clever. He was getting ready for a trip, and he did something I think similar to this for like 3 weeks or something like that. And just to get ready for his trip. So every single day he journaled. And I don't remember if it was Italian or French. It was a Romance language. And they by the end of that 3 week period, they felt really confident and felt like they could talk to people. It's really, really great way to build vocabulary. The next activity I want to talk about are gratitude journals. So I really love gratitude journals or even just lists. So anything that makes you reflect on something you're grateful for. Doing this really saved me during a really difficult period of my life. I just was not feeling great. I had a lot of things going on that were not good in my life. And in a gratitude journal or basically gratitude exercises, you have to write down things you're grateful for. And it can be really hard some days to find them. Are you grateful for a great cup of coffee? Are you grateful for the sunshine? Are you grateful that you woke up? I mean, are you grateful for the beautiful sunshine you see outside? Are you grateful for snow? Are you grateful for seeing, you might have to really search when things are hard, but you say, okay, I'm going to write down 25 things that I'm grateful for today. And it really helps you to start seeing things in a different light. I really, I've seen different versions of this. So maybe writing down 25 good things that you did, 25 good things that you did in the last week. Again, you're going to find yourself really searching, and some of it might feel silly and insignificant, but then to me, it just has really helped flip some things that are not so great into positives and really appreciating things that I maybe were taking for granted, and then it makes me feel happier recognizing those things. And there's a lot of joy in simple pleasures, and it can really help get through a dark time and be a great language learning exercise at the same time. So if you're in the intermediate level, I hope that you're spending a lot of time reading. Reading is one of the most powerful ways to learn a language. If you can read, you can learn anything. But when you're reading in a foreign language, it's gonna be such a different experience than you're used to reading in your own language. You're not gonna have the speed. It's not gonna have the ease. You're not gonna be able to, kind of glaze over and skip over words and still get the gist of the meaning. You're gonna have to dig in. You're gonna have to read multiple times. And a journal can make all the difference in understanding something. And before I go on with the specifics of this activity, I want to say that reading things like blog posts, horoscopes, recipes, gossip, whatever it is you like, they all count. So, don't feel like you have to read Don Quixote to benefit and learn another language or the equivalent in your target language of Don Quixote. So in a foreign language, a lot of times if you're reading to learn a language, at this stage, it can be really frustrating. You have to read a page several times. You have to mark up the text, you have to underline things, you have to look up a lot of words. You have to kind of read it one time and get the gist, and then you have to go back and dig out some of the words that you really didn't get. You have to look them up. So a notebook can be really helpful for this. If you can't mark in your text, and I talk in some other videos about some ways to interact with text, whether you can write in it or you can't. But regardless, you can write down words and phrases from the text that were new for you in your notebook, and then go find, let's say, 8 or 10 or 5, depending on the length of your text, of the most important sentences, and then you write a summary of what you read. And it can be short, it can be long, but it makes reading active, and you'll get a lot more out of it that way instead of just kind of glossing over the page. So next week, we're going to talk more about journaling to learn languages. Until next time.